So the first thing I want to do is just click anywhere in the frames of the ball layer. And so you want to make sure you're not on the ground layer but the ball layer, because that's the thing we want to animate. In fact, it might be a good idea just to lock the ground layer so we don't accidentally click something down there. So I'm going to click on this layer anywhere in between here and here, and I'm going to create a motion tween. And I can do that a couple ways. I can go up here to insert motion tween, or if you're tricky, you can right click or control click and create a motion tween that way. And notice it turns blue, so this is giving us an indication that something special is happening in this layer. If we look over here, the icon looks slightly different. So it looks like a little animated square, so that's giving us some indicators. So we're always kind of looking, especially when we're learning something new, we're always looking for those visual indicators. Alright, so now we're ready to animate this. I'm going to move the ball up a little higher here. And essentially, we want to move this ball over time. And so we have to choose a place in time. So I'm going to choose frame 10. And I've just moved my playhead. Or you can click in the layer, and that'll also select that. Notice that there's this little number that says 10. That just means frame 10. And I'm going to just move that ball to where I want it at that point in time. So at frame 10, I want it here. Alright, so notice a couple things have happened. We've got this green line that's indicating that we've got something happening here, and we've got this little diamond here. If we zoom in, there's a little diamond there that says, hey, there's something changing on this layer. So if I move my playhead across, notice it's moving, so it's filling that in. So we've given it a beginning location and an ending location, and Flash has filled in the in-betweens, and that's known as tweening. So I'm going to go ahead and move to frame 20 and move a little less than half the height of my starting location. And because as gravity pushes down, the ball will lose height as it bounces across. And move to frame 30. I like to just move in increments of 5s or 10s to start out with. Makes it a little easier to make things nice and organized. So frame 10 we're down, frame 20 we're up a little less than half, and then frame 30 we're back down. Frame 40 we're back over, but not as high as the last one. And we want to keep these angles pretty close together. And then frame 50. Notice that's giving me this little indication that I'm hitting that line. And I've run out of room on my frame. So I've created 50 frames. It looks like I need a few more. So it's pretty easy to do. I'm just going to click on that layer on frame 70 and press F5, and now that ball exists past that 50 mark. And I'm going to do the same for the ground. I'm going to just press F5, and so now the ground is there as well. So we get to keyframe 50, and notice since we clicked a different layer that our green line is missing. It's still there. We just have to click the ball or click the layer and it's back. And I want to finish this out so it's off the stage. So frame 60 a little bit less, and frame 70, want that off by frame 70. So I'm a little off, but we'll tidy that up in the next step. Now that is done, it looks a little off. These should be a little bit more even. This one is way too long. So I can always go back and make changes just by selecting these points and making adjustments to them. So I'm going to go back to the beginning here and make this a little taller. And I made a mistake. I shouldn't have clicked the point, because notice the whole thing is moving. And occasionally you want that to happen, but in this case I just want to move this specific point. So I'm going to click that that object or that symbol first, and then it's going to allow me to move that point. So I want to move that up, and maybe this up a little bit and this a little wider, because certainly this would be wider than say these other littler ones. And I might want to move this up a little bit. Move that over. So now that looks a little more reasonable. So we're moving downward this way, and we're decreasing the distance between these points as well. And for this exercise, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's go ahead and save that, and then we'll test it by pressing Apple Return. And it looks like it's animating over. So when you press Apple Return, essentially you're seeing what the audience would see. So you're getting a little test preview. All right, looks pretty good. On to the next step. All right, now that that's all tidied up, you may have noticed, I'm going to press Apple Return again, that this ball is moving very rigidly, just in sharp angles. And things in nature don't move in this way. They move in an arc format. So they're not going to move in this kind of sharp 90-degree angle at the same speed. So we want to put some arcs in here. And that's one of the main principles of animation, objects moving in an arc. So pretty easy to do. We just want to target this green line. I'm going to go ahead and move the playhead back to frame 1. And I'm just going to click in between any of these 2 points here. So anywhere on that green line, I'm just going to click, hold, and drag, and that's going to allow me to create a curve. So this line is no longer moving in a straight line, it's moving in a curved line. It's going to look a lot more natural. So you want to do that to all the green lines. You just want to make them move in an arc. If you want to be more precise with that, you can use the wide arrow tool or the subselection tool, and it acts much like Illustrator does. So now that we've got our animation happening and our balls moving in an arc, there's probably one more thing that we have to do, or that we should do, to make it look more realistic. And that's another animation principle known as squash and stretch. And you want to use this free transform tool. So I just selected it, but then I went to my free transform tool. And I'm just going to stretch it out a bit. And real things in real life don't stretch out like that, but for some reason when it's animated, back to that point, it makes it look more real when we exaggerate that. So I'm going to squash that down and move that down so it's even with the ground. So it's squashing, and then it's stretched, and then it's squashed when it hits, and then we'll get to that peak and we'll stretch it back out. So this whole time I'm just using the free transform tool. So stretch to squashed, and notice it's looking like it's bouncing. Bounce, and then stretch, and then down to this next point, and squash back down, maybe a little less. Let's test that and see what that looks like. Alright, so that's it for the bouncing ball lab.